Hello, welcome back. This is Full Time Devils. I am Statman Dave. I'm joined by Rachel. I'm joined by Paul to talk everything Manchester United for the big game against Everton in the Premier League. A big turning point for United. It's a big result in terms of getting them into the top four. First up, let's talk Luke Shaw. So in the press conference before the Everton game, Mourinho answering some pretty strange questions.
That press conference brought a lot of emotions out of a lot of fans as far as Jose Mourinho is concerned, because people have a lot of opinions on Luke Shaw. A lot of people like him. But I think most people realise that the conversation now isn't about Luke Shaw's ability or like whether he should be our left back or not. We all accept that he's a very good player. We all accept he has great potential, even though we don't know where he is at right now. But the real question is, like, Jose Mourinho is doing the exact same thing again. Like, he is knocking a player down so that, well, some people think that's it now. Luke Shaw is done. Jose Mourinho has put out that he no longer wants him at the club. But in reality, he's giving him the opportunity to climb up and have the glory that Martial and Mkhitaryan are currently undergoing. Now, whether you think that's the right thing to do or not is debatable. I think that it's too harsh on Luke Shaw and that man management would have done better, but that's a moot point, really, because this is how Jose Mourinho is doing things this year. He is treating his players harshly because he wants them to rise up and be warriors. And I guess we have to see if Luke Shaw can do that or not. I personally don't think he will. I think he's on the outs of the club. He's on the outs of the manager and the players. It's probably not a nice place for him to be right now, and he'll want to get out of there ASAP. And he'll probably go off and be a great player like all of our other transfers do.
It is an interesting one. You know, you've seen how Mourinho's broken these players down, but he never questioned Mkhitaryan's work rate or Anthony Martial's work rate. You know, he sort of bigged them up in terms of their ambition and so forth. Paul, do you think tactically is the issue why Luke Shaw hasn't made it under Mourinho at Manchester United in terms of how Mourinho uses fullbacks? He uses one to attack and he uses one to sort of defend, is a bit of a cover, holds his position.
I think there's definitely some truth in that, but I think the predominant reason that Luke Shaw isn't currently making it is probably about Luke Shaw. Now, there is certainly an argument that a different man management approach would have been more productive, a kind of Fergie-esque meeting the needs of the player specifically kind of man management approach rather than the Mourinho-esque, if you don't run through my gauntlet fire with me, then you are not man enough to walk alongside. You know, that kind of Mourinho ridiculous machismo, which has been very effective, but causes casualties. In terms of tactics, I would say the real tactical concern about Luke Shaw has been the impact of his absence. Like, we're going to come on to talk about some tactical stuff later, and I think having a really penetrative, dynamic left back to mirror Antonio Valencia, you know, one goes, one stays, on the other side would have made a huge difference a number of times this season. So I would argue that it's less about the fact that he's a bad tactical fit for Mourinho, given we've got a rampaging guy on the right, and more actually the kind of makeshift approach he's taken at left back. Because I suspect what happened was Mourinho arrived at the club and was very disappointed with Luke Shaw. I guess when he was making his plans before the season started, you know, Shaw would have been number one choice at left back, and it's some of the off the pitch stuff that's been the problem.
It is an interesting one. You know, consider the game against Bournemouth where United were really in the ascendance. Luke Shaw was playing really well and Mourinho brought him off for Jess Lingard to add an extra attacking player, but it was completely wrong. Rachel, do you think Shaw's going to be at Manchester United next season, or do you think he'll be moved on by Mourinho?
I mean, I think it's up to him at this point. Like, I think he can, like, put his pride to one side, you know, put the effort in, almost like say sorry. If it's true with these reports coming out that he's not working hard and that the players don't appreciate it, then it's on him to make the difference, step up and like become the player we need him to be. I don't know. Footballers tend to be quite arrogant. Maybe that's an assumption, but by nature, and maybe he's not Manchester born and bred. You know, it's probably he'd have an easier life going to a different club.
It could be. Paul, last little thoughts on Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw in or Luke Shaw out?
I mean, I'm theoretically Luke Shaw in, but he's gone. I think. I tell you who should sign him is Arsenal. Like, it'd be such a good match for him. Wenger let him do whatever he wants. But the one thing I'd say, Dave, is I really take issue with what you said about the Bournemouth game. Luke Shaw attracted quite a lot of praise for that game, and he did pretty well defensively. And I think people were pleased to see him going in for some tough challenges and stuff in terms of where his psychology with his leg break recovery. But actually, I think that game showed you everything you need to know about why he hasn't taken the Mkhitaryan and Martial response approach to Jose's style. Because if you watch that game back and just focus on Luke Shaw, there are so many times in that game where he makes small wrong decisions. He doesn't gamble ahead of the ball quickly enough. He switches off briefly, and it's ring rust to a certain extent, but it's that kind of slowness of thinking that's crept into Shaw's game this season.
I think it's like the injury was obviously a big thing, because on that injury, he was on a rampaging run from within his own half. He was about to score a goal, and obviously that horrible leg break it's killed his confidence. And I think it is game time to get that confidence back to go forward. Anyway, staying on the result that we got at Bournemouth, the 0-0 draw, at home at Old Trafford, wasn't good enough for Manchester United. I'm going to stay with you, Paul. What's been wrong this season? Why have United been coming unstuck against the likes of Burnley, Bournemouth, West Ham at home, where United have had so many chances, but they just haven't taken them?
I've got a friend who thinks that 4-2-3-1, big team against small team, has been essentially solved by Premier League managers. That the kind of you set up in defensive block in a 4-4-2 or a kind of counter 4-2-3-1, and it's incredibly hard for the attacking team to break down. And if you look at the teams that are having the most success in the Premier League this season, the big teams, none of them are really playing 4-2-3-1. So there might be something in that theory. That's not my own, I should say. I think that generally speaking, the problem this season has been about finishing. If you look at the XG, sorry to use superstat nerd terms, but if you look at the number and quality of chances we're creating in the games against smaller sides this season, there is no doubt that we should be way ahead of where we are at the moment. And actually, the West Brom game at the weekend was a real exception to that rule, and the kind of makeshift midfield that we had, and the general lack of balance we had in that game. That was a very different kind of 0-0 draw. That was much more like the Van Gaal era. Lots of kind of sound and fury signifying nothing. Lots of kind of slightly arbitrary decision making around the box and not really creating those chances. But generally speaking, our biggest problem by a mile has been about the chance conversion.
Just in terms of the West Brom game, one of the things that I sort of spotted out was between Mkhitaryan, Jess Lingard, and of course Martial, those three players only completed 6 passes into the West Brom box. Do you think that's a problem, Rachel, in terms of the consistency of the United attackers? I like Mkhitaryan, one week having a brilliant game, the next week having a quiet game. Is that an issue for Mourinho?
Yeah, I think it's frustrating that at no point in the season have we really had a level of consistency. We're in the Premier League, we're 19 games now unbeaten. So, I guess that shows consistency, but it doesn't feel like consistency because we're not winning. We're having so many draws. And you're right, there's been no real players staying on a top form. You don't really know. Mkhitaryan, Martial, Rashford, Lingard, Ibrahimovic, the front 3/4 tends to be a mixture of those players, but you never know which one's going to be stand out. Ibrahimovic has kind of set himself apart in the sense that he gets goals in big games, but even he has been letting us down. The whole question that we're talking about now, actually, I don't agree with in theory, because when I looked at it, I don't really think it is just the lesser teams. And I went from there, looked at our Premier League results this season, and you'd have to get down to 8th, which is West Brom, to find a team that we put more than 1 against in the Premier League. And then it's Stoke in 9th, where it was 1, and then it's Southampton in 10th, and it was 2 again. So it's not that we can't break down lesser teams, it's that we can break down no teams at the moment. And I do think I agree with Paul. I think it's finishing. You can go back to the Burnley and the Stoke home draws and say that, well, those keepers had a worldie, but actually in those games there may have been 3, maybe 4 great saves, and the rest of it's shots on target at the keeper, and it's our finishing that's letting us down.
I like the way you're talking, because in terms of stats, if you look at Manchester United this season, in fact, they've had the second most shots within the penalty area, only behind Liverpool. But then if you flip that over and you look at how many chances they've converted within the penalty area, they're the second worst. Only Southampton have converted fewer of those chances. Only 12.5% of United's shots within the box have gone in this season, which is absolutely rubbish. Anyway, one last thing I want to touch on in terms of the lesser teams, it's crossing. In 14 games this season, Manchester United have played over 25 crosses in those games, and they've only scored over 2 goals once against Middlesbrough, of course, when they threw on Marouane Fellaini and lobbed those crosses into the box. Paul, do you think that's another issue as well? Are United crossing too much?
I don't think generally that we're crossing too much. I don't think that is a general problem across the whole of the season. And my key argument, my key kind of defence point about that would be the number of chances we create. Because, you know, if you can either have a problem with finishing or a problem with creating chances, I think as a manager, you take a problem with finishing all day, every day, because under Van Gaal, we weren't creating enough chances to consistently expect to win games. Under Mourinho, we are. And that's one of the key areas of progress. And if Ibrahimovic's shooting boots had worked properly in the games he cared about less, we'd be in a very different position than we are at the moment. I mean, I think the one exception, of course, to the are we crossing too much was against West Brom, where it was absolutely ridiculous. We put in 33 crosses and only 3 of them found a United player. And also, if you're Tony Pulis, don't you write, "Dear Santa, for Christmas, I would like Man United to bang in a load of crosses." And it reminded me of the Fulham game, obviously, like everyone was talking about. But the thing about that that's extraordinary is in that Fulham game, we played 82 crosses in the box. Now, I don't know about you guys, but 33 felt like an intolerably high number against West. Like tearing your hair out, going, "Stop crossing it." Like that 82, that's not even half of what Moyes managed. So, like, you know, we got a long way to go before we really hit peak Moyes territory.
Peak Moyes. In terms of the stats as well, in terms of United players this season playing the through balls, it is pretty much Pogba, Herrera, and Ibrahimovic. All were suspended against West Brom. In terms of the percentage of through balls they played for United, it's around 59%. So that's an incredible attacking input that you've lost there, losing those players. But those players are back for the big game against Everton. So with Paul Pogba returning to fitness, Zlatan no longer suspended, Herrera back in the side. Rachel, do you want all those 3 players back in your team for the game against Everton?
You're a good guy, Dave, but I'm going to be honest. Don't know if I trust you complicitly in that statement. Is Paul Pogba back? Do we know that for sure? Honestly, let's be honest. Me and Paul in recent weeks have started taking this very seriously. It's an important game. That point matters. That point matters. I looked before. I've managed to go from like running around in relegation but really enjoying my time to 19 points off Houghton. That's nothing. That's 2 very good games. I need a very, very good score today. Paul Pogba, he might ruin it for me. Jose Mourinho loves Paul Pogba. He would play him every second he could. But is he going to play him against Everton? Okay, let's start with the basics. David De Gea in net.
That's 1 point.
Tony Valencia at right back, but I mean, maybe he's injured. Who knows? Bayern Rojo in the centre, left back. This not only is this a problem position for Man United, I feel like anybody who plays this game will tell you it's a problem position here because it could be anybody.
Yeah.
Because when in doubt, go with your love. Blend in. I'm going to go Carrick, Herrera, Pogba because I think we need a stronger midfield against Everton rather than a 4-2-3-1. So I'm going to go back to a 4-3-3, and then I'm going to go Mkhitaryan, Ibrahimovic, Martial. Hope for the best.
Decent team. I reckon you've got a number of points there. I'm going to go with you've scored 9 out of 11. It's going to be a good week. Ooh. In terms of point scoring, though, Paul, some pretty controversial tactics last week. You pretty much picked 3,000 central midfielders, 2 fullbacks, and you got 8 points. What are you going with this week? Are you actually going with the team you think Mourinho's going to play, or are you going to play the numbers game?
No, I'm going to be boring and pick the team that I think is going to start. I know. One of the reasons for doing the numbers game was about the number of injuries we had and suspension, so it was all a bit more up in the air. But I think there's a lot more nailed on positions in this week's fixture. So Dave in goal, Valencia, Bay, Rocco. Yeah, left back. I've gone for Blind as well, but with no confidence that could easily be Ashley Young. Herrera, Pogba. I've gone 4-2-3-1 and Lingard, Mkhitaryan, and Martial. But I'll tell you, Rachel, that argument has convinced me. I'm wavering, but I'm going to stick with my original suggestion. One of the things I really thought about when picking this lineup was that Mkhitaryan was terrible against West Brom. I love Mkhitaryan. He might be my single favourite player to watch in the whole United squad at the moment. But I don't know, it's Pogba. So after Pogba, he might be my favourite player to watch. But yeah, he had a really bad game. So Mourinho does kind of pick on form sometimes. But anyway, Lingard, Martial, Mkhitaryan, and obviously the first name on the team sheet, Ibrahimovic, is going to start up front.
As far as tactics go, like, I feel like you've really, really played a bad one there. Because if you think it might be a midfield three, then why? And Pogba might not start. Why not put Carrick in?
Because I think Pogba's gonna start. That's the one thing I apart from Ibrahimovic will play up front. I think Pogba's gonna start.
What if he gets injured? What if he's injured himself right now in training?
There's lots of questions, but anyway,
that could happen to anything. Like. We could all, I don't know.
Anyway, moving on. I'm not going to go with what I think. I'm going to go with what Mourinho should do. I'm going to scrap this game. I'm going to finish fourth like Arsenal have done season after season in the Premier League. Manchester United need to switch to a 3-4-3. This is one to get out, to get the best out of the players they've got with the injuries. I feel like it fits playing two attacking midfielders behind Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but the back three as well, give him a bit more a base to play out the back. The thing we mentioned before with the full-backs going forward, I think if you play a back three, both wing-backs can attack. So my back three is obviously David De Gea in goal. That's easy. That's an easy 1 point. The back three, I'm going to go with Daley Blind as the left centre-back, Rojo in the middle. He's going to do his best sort of David Luiz impressions. And, of course, Bay as the right centre-back into that midfield four. We're going to have Valencia on the right-hand side, Young on the left-hand side, Herrera, Pogba in the middle, and then a front three, Mkhitaryan, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and, of course, Anthony Martial. Guys, what do you think of that team? Do you think it's a winner?
It's not even that risky because you're playing Blind as your left centre back. But that might as well be a left back. Ashley Young can play anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've got there's no wild card in that team.
The formation though, the formation that Mourinho should change. I think in terms of the counter attack, it United out in terms of them breaking those two wide players coming inside and so forth. But anyway, enough about our teams. Let's talk about Everton.
I was going to challenge you to a huge debate on whether or not United should sometime on what United's formation should be, because I couldn't disagree more with the notion that we should switch to a back three. But maybe we could save that for another time.
Well, we can get there. Producer Chris on the phone, speak to him after the show, of course. But anyway, Everton, Paul, tell me about them. Who's their star man?
It's interesting. I mean, obviously, like Romelu Lukaku will get lots of discussion in the lead up to this game, both because he's incredibly important to Everton and also because he will be relentlessly linked with Manchester United because he's a footballer. And it's coming to that time of year when if you're a footballer, there's a decent chance you're going to be relentlessly linked to Manchester United. I want to talk about Ross Barkley, though, generally considered to be having something of a mixed season. And certainly like lots of issues around his position in the England squad. And he's not very happy at not being selected. And you can kind of see why, because he's averaging 2.7 key passes per 90 minutes of football. The only player who can match that in United's, that's in the league this season, the only player in United's squad who can match that is Jesse Lingard. And that is from a much smaller sample size, less than 1,000 minutes for Lingard, more than 2,000 minutes for Ross Barkley. 2.7 key passes per game, per 90 minutes of football for someone playing over 2,000 minutes is a very, very high and consistent amount of creative output. So I think obviously he blows hot and cold. He's that sort of player, but I do think there's a danger that because he's a bit of a flair player and because he kind of does blow a bit hot and cold, people write him off quite quickly. But he's been putting up the numbers all season.
Yeah, he's been really good in terms of English players in the Premier League. No players registered more assists than Ross Barkley this season. He's sort of joint with the likes of Adam Lallana and so forth. Rachel, in terms of other players for Everton, are you looking at Tom Davies? He's got wonderful hair and he's pretty decent for 18 years old.
He's got wonderful hair. It worries me that might be your hair goal, because I'm going to tell you right now, Dave, drop it, because it's got crap hair.
I can't agree with that. I'm sorry, Rachel.
It's okay.
That's worse. That's worse than when Dave said we should play three at the back.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm happy to be different on this thing because I feel so ordinary after your statement, Paul, because I was also a bit like, yeah, because we don't really follow Everton. So, like, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, Ross Barkley, yeah, he's a bit rubbish though, isn't he? No, he's not. I don't think he's rubbish. I do think that he bulked up quite a lot, and I do think that changed his game a lot. He's had to slow down quite a bit, become a bit more a holder. But no, I guess I didn't rate him that highly. Like, I don't know if I would want him at our club. I mean, Lukaku's standing out as the 10 out of 10 best player, but like I find it confusing how they can all get behind someone who is so ready to leave. And not only so much that they're all accepting of it. Koeman, who might be leaving as well, he's like, yeah, Lukaku, he shouldn't be here. Blassie might be out injured, but he's just come out and been like, yeah, Lukaku's way too good for this club. He shouldn't be here. And I'm like, guys, come on, have some ambition, have some pride. But no, so it's hard to see. They play so well at times, and I do think they can be a threat. Lukaku definitely is. I mean, you put Blind as centre back. This time last year, Blind dealt with Lukaku so well, and I feel like that was a really good game for Blind in the sense that it helped write off a lot of the haters by saying, you know what, he can deal with the strong, fast players. So I'm slightly worried, but I think we'll do well.
I kind of agree. Everton are inconsistent, likes of Ross Barkley. They're in and out, the likes of Lukaku. One player that I think that you two haven't mentioned, Idrissa Gueye, who had a fantastic game against Paul Pogba in the reverse fixtures. Pretty much man-marked him, and it was one of those games where Paul Pogba just couldn't get a sniff. His touch was poor. He was taking too many players on from deep areas. Do you think he could be, a real player for Everton this season in terms of this game?
He did absolutely dominate that battle with Pogba earlier this season. And that's a real worry with Pogba coming back from injury after United have stuttered. Because the one thing we know about Paul Pogba is he's absolutely desperate to make an impact. Like, every fibre of his being is crying out to be Paul Pogba, everything that we know that he can be. And when he gets into that mode, it's not generally good for United. We need Pogba calm, just doing what he can do, but not feeling that he has to prove himself. And up against Idrissa Gueye coming back from injury, this is a bad time. And I think that's a potentially bad combination for Pogba. And I think we might see Idrissa Gueye do a job again. The Lukaku thing's interesting because he just had a terrible game against Liverpool, and this accusation that he doesn't do it on the big stage. He scored 3 goals against top 6 teams this season, but 2 of those were against Guardiola's City, who completely fell apart against Everton for reasons passing understanding. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's going to be a really important matchup in the middle of the pitch.
Well, is Paul Pogba going to dominate, or is Paul Pogba not going to dominate? Rachel, score prediction time. Give me your score.
Pogba. What a new name. That's what he needed. He needed more hashtags, and we've just managed to find him one. Okay, what's score prediction? 2-1. Let's go classic.
Paul?
That is the classic. I don't know. I kind of want United to win, but I have no idea what the score will be because none of us ever do.
I did so much. I actually researched. I actually went in and was shocked by my findings that we've not got more than one past the top 7, and I'm still like, 2 goals, guys, 2 goals.
On our podcast every week, we spend 60 minutes talking about how kind of depressing and terrible it is to watch Man United at the moment, and then predict a comfortable win. It's like every week, same every week. I would say I don't have any actual confidence we're going to win this game, but I'm going to predict a 1-0 win because why not?
Come on, guys.
No!
Mourinho is switching to the back 3, 4 and 3 up top. United are going to win 4-0. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Adam Boltwood is going to have to dye his hair blonde, and I'm going to live the season out as a happy man. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching the Full Time Devils preview of Manchester United versus Everton. Of course, if you're new to Full Time Devils, hit that subscribe button. See you later.